Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. I'm George Conley with Scratch Golf Tips, and today we're going to be talking about one of the biggest things so many golfers get wrong on the golf course. Now, when speaking about some of the biggest mistakes that golfers make on the course, it's very easy to say, too many golfers slice the ball, too many golfers don't putt the ball well. I'm not going to go with some of that elementary advice. I'm going to talk about something specific, actionable, and a decision that you make on the golf course that is really hurting your game that we can very easily convert. Now, the mistake I'm talking about is how golfers approach the par 5 holes that they play throughout a round. If you've ever watched a PGA Tour or LPGA Tour broadcast, you'll often hear the announcers say, oh, the X player is heading onto a par 5, this is a great scoring opportunity. These players love the par 5s, it gives them opportunities to score birdies, and if they can get out of position, they can get back into position and still fight for par much more effectively than they could on a par 3 or a par 4. Yet many amateur golfers dread par 5s because they make a lot of big scores on these holes, they get out of position, they can't get back in position, and it leads to more blow-up holes on par 5s than you would see on par 3s or par 4s. Now, the reason for that is not necessarily what you'd expect. A lot of golfers would think, well, it's because I don't hit my drive 300 yards like Rory, or maybe it's because I can't stick my wedges like Zach Johnson or Steve Stricker. That's not necessarily the case. It's much less the ability, and much more often the main issue is how we're approaching these holes. For the sake of this video, I'm going to use a baseline example of a par 5 that is 500 yards on the dot. You may play them that are much longer, you may play them much shorter, but this is the baseline so you can work your clubs and your individual yardages according to that. If you hit a basic drive out there, say 260 yards, and you have 240 left, many golfers, if they're in the fairway and they have an unobstructed line of the pin, they think immediately, how can I go for this in 2? That's the first thought. It's a very aggressive thought. Now, that's not to say that this is an incorrect thought. If you want to go for it in 2 and you feel confident in it, then you can absolutely do that. But it's important to try and reverse engineer the golf hole. What I mean by that is, if you have 500 yards left and you hit a 260 yard shot. Okay, so your first option is the aggressive option, like I said earlier. You can hit a 240 yard 3-wood and maybe you'll get it on or around the green, but what else could you do from 240 yards? Well, you could hit your 140 yard club, say an 8-iron, and you could stick that right in the middle of the fairway, and then you'll have 100 yards left. And maybe you love that distance. You can hit a 58 degree and put it right next to the hole and have a putt for birdie, maybe you 2-putt for par. That's a simple way to deconstruct the hole from the hole back to you to understand those yardages and conceptualize it in your head. There are not many amateur golfers who are excellent ball strikers from 200 yards and out. If you put a long iron, a hybrid, or a wood in someone's hands, more often than not, they're not going to hit an excellent shot. So if you have 240 yards out and you take that 3-wood and you slice it out of bounds, now you're 60 yards away from the hole, you're an awkward distance, you had to take a penalty stroke, now you're fighting to get up and down for par. Whereas if you flip it on the other way, playing a more conservative way, you hit that 8-iron. If you have 140 yards and you're not aiming at a green, you're aiming at a wider target, which is the fairway as a whole, you're probably going to hit that ball into the fairway. And if you don't hit that ball in the fairway, you might hit it in the first cut or the rough. The point being, you're going to have 100 yards in, roughly, and you're going to be in a much better position. You're likely not going to be obstructed by any trees, and you didn't take that penalty stroke. So now you have 100 yards in and you want to get up and down for birdie. Now, it's very easy for me to sit here and say, well, you're going to hit your 3-wood horribly and you're going to hit your 8-iron perfectly. I know that that's not always the case, but you know your game better than I can explain it to you, obviously. So deconstruct it. Everyone has a few clubs that they really like, a few yardages that they really like, and a lot of people have yardages that they absolutely hate. So personally, I really don't like right around 90 yards. That's a tricky number for me. If I hit a full lob wedge, it's going to go too long. I don't like knocking down my lob wedge. It's not a shot I'm comfortable with. So if I had 240 yards in, one number that I love is 110 yards. It's one of my favorite yardages to have. So I can deconstruct that hole. I know that my pitching wedge full can go around 130 yards. So I'll hit a pitching wedge and I'll get to my number, 110 yards. And from there, I know that more often than I won't, I'll hit the green. Then I can 1-putt or 2-putt, maybe 3-putt, but most of the time I'm going to be making a par, occasional birdie, occasional bogey. Okay, keep that in mind. That's scenario 1. Now I have 240 yards and I'm going to hit a 3-wood. Personally, I don't like to hit my 3-wood off the deck. I use it more off the tee. I'm not great with it. there's a lot of things that can go wrong with a 3-wood. I can top it, I can hook it, I can slice it, and 9 times out of 10, I'm not gonna hit that ball on the green. And a huge contributing factor in why it is not always great to go for it in 2 is that second shot, if it doesn't go where you want it to, there's so much unpredictability in that third shot going in. Like I said earlier, you could be out of position, you could take a penalty stroke and be hitting a 4th shot, you could have a yardage you hate. You know, for me, like I said, I hate 90 yards. If I don't get a good piece of my 3-wood, maybe I sky it, maybe I chunk it a little bit, then I might be faced with that 90-yard shot, which I don't like. I'd rather be further out, and maybe I'm 90 yards from the rough because I didn't hit it perfectly. That I know that I won't be in those unpredictable situations when I go for it in 3 and I take that iron wedge approach. It all comes back to the predictability. There are many golfers who, if you put them in the fairway, they're not gonna make a huge score, right? It's a fairly simple equation. But if you go for it really aggressively and you wanna push the eagle, you wanna push the birdie, that's fine, I understand that, but just know that the other side of that coin is double bogey and triple bogey are very much in play, and with the conservative method, you're probably not gonna make a triple bogey too many times. So that's the mindset that a lot of people should be going into a par 5 with. If you go on a par 5 and you're playing a match with your friend and you're a few down on the 15th hole, absolutely, it makes sense to be aggressive. But if you're on the 3rd hole of the day, you're still trying to figure out where you're at for the round, how you're feeling, why wouldn't you go with a little bit more of a conservative approach and guarantee, or as close as you can guarantee something in the sport of golf, a bogey or better? It all comes down to course management, and the number one thing that is important when you're making your course management decisions is understanding your game. Like I said earlier, know which clubs you like. Know which yardages that you wish to hit from. That's very important, and that can only be done by spending time on the golf course, spending time on the driving range, spending time on a FlightScope or a launch monitor similar. If you'd like a FlightScope, we have an affiliate link in the description down below. It's a great affordable way to get your yardages, which will help so much, and not only when you are clicking the pin, oh, I have 160, here's the shot, but understanding those course management decisions. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or comments, or just a different point of view on anything that I've brought up in this video, I'd love it if you left a comment down below. We read and respond to all the comments on these videos. If you did find this content helpful, I would appreciate it if you left a like rating on the video. That does 2 things. 1, it shows me that you enjoyed the video. 2, it helps YouTube understand that people are enjoying the video, and it shows this video to more people who will find it helpful. As always, you can scroll through the Scratch Golf Tips YouTube channel. We have plenty of videos that'll help you gain more confidence on the golf course. And if you want to see some of our future uploads coming out, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel to see everything that we come out with. As always, thank you very much for watching. Play well and take care.